hello, and good evening. We are live from Drogheda, Drogheda, Condelu, Era. We are live from Drogheda, County Louth, Ireland, here in the very green and verdant Boyne Valley, the ancient valley of Brú na Bóinne. And of course, the reason it's very verdant is not least because of all of the rain we've been having. Yes, we've had some lovely summer weather lately, first of the summer, in fact, in recent weeks. But it has reverted to sort of more wintry conditions. Dull today, raining heavily, bit of a breeze, bit cool, much cooler than it was. So, yeah. However, after a dry week, the Fire Festival, which was actually delayed by a week this year because it's normally held on the weekend closest to the astronomical celebration of Bealtaine. I think in retrospect that looks like it was a good decision. Fabulous weather, everyone in great form. We'll talk about that though further on. And before we start tonight, before I even say hello to people, a bit of a sad duty. If you were following the Facebook in the last few hours, you'll have seen the sad news that John Wilmot, also known as the Woodland Bard, has sadly passed away. John had been battling an illness and he had been in hospital. And the last thing he had posted on Facebook was on the 2nd of May to say that he was being put to sleep for a few days. I think he was having trouble with his lungs and he was hoping that the doctors would help get everything working again. But sadly, that wasn't to be the case. I want to pay a little bit of a tribute to John. We never actually met face to face. It's interesting because I kind of really only got to know John through his work during the pandemic, during the lockdowns. And I think he, likewise, with my work, he was known as the Woodland Bard. John was very interested in particular in trees and woods and forests, nature in general, water, rivers, wells, and folklore and mythology, of course. He regaled us with many tales and poems and would hold gatherings in the forests where people would sing songs, recite poetry, tell stories. And just seems to have been an all-round very nice fellow. So for what it's worth, John, rest in peace. Onward journey, I hope, is one accompanied by good energy and many blessings. You have done a sterling service for the people of Ireland, and more generally, the wider people who tuned into your regular broadcasts on the internet. So many of you, of course, will know John. I know that a lot of followers of Mythical Ireland would also be followers of the Woodland Bard. Sorry, I was really sorry to hear the news this afternoon that John had been unsuccessful, as it were, in his battle for recovery. I understand that he went to sleep peacefully, and there's a nice post on his own personal Facebook page compiled by his daughter. And looking forward to the opportunity in the coming week or so, or whenever, to pay tribute as part of the wider community that followed John and his work. He lived in latterly, he had sold his previous residence and lived latterly in a house called Lish de Dannan, the fort of the Dedannans. I mean, do you know? And I actually think that's the townland name. The Gatehouse Lodge, Lish de Dannan, Mohill, County Leitrim. That was where he lived out the last of his days. Look, hopefully they were rewarding days full of joy. And I know that John had a great passion for everything that he did. And I know that his followers rejoiced in that. I am also very glad to say that John seems to have been an admirer of the work of Mythical Ireland. And on occasion, when I would join his live streams, he'd give me a nice shout out, which was lovely. Yeah, John, rest in peace. And to all your family and friends, of course, I extend my personal condolences, and I'm sure on behalf of the wider Mythical Ireland community, and of course your own community of followers, I'm sure they will all join me in passing on our regrets and our condolences to John's family and many, many friends around the world. So that's it. I'll say hello to some people now. First in the house tonight was Shasta Bize on Facebook, saying, quite the night sky lately. Well, yes, indeed. That, of course, is going to be a subject. One of the subjects of tonight's live stream. Bit of a mixed bag tonight, but I really felt we couldn't just continue with a reading because there's a few special things that we have to talk about. Joseph Kirda says, Goramahagut, you're very welcome. Tá fáilte roat a Joseph agus conas atá too. Wayne Bird is in the house. Good evening, Anthony. Hello, everyone. Looking forward to another good night. Brilliant. You watching Netflix? Joke. Terrible joke. I know, right? Yes, indeed. Daniel Fagan, or excuse me, Daniel O'Fuegon. Brilliant to see you the other evening on the old hill in the centre of Ireland. Looking forward to this, Anthony. Big hello to yourself and the Tua from Ardmacha. Yeah, and the same right back at you from Glannabonia. Hope you're in good form. Sandra Boothroyd is saying, evening. Rain, wind, and cold after 3 hot days. Yeah, I know. How do you think we feel? So we had a beautiful day at Uisneach on Saturday, which I will talk about. On Sunday afternoon, yesterday, we had an almighty thunderstorm. We could hear it coming for half an hour. There was just endless thunder. It just constant. It never stopped. For about half an hour, endless thunder. This huge dark cloud was getting closer and closer. Do you know what myself and Anne did? Won't as we are to watching the spectacles of nature. We'll talk about Friday night in a moment. We both moved some chairs out into our little porch because the storm was coming from the south, and we wanted to watch it, and we were watching all the flashes of lightning and listening to the rumbles and an almighty downpour, the likes of which would prompt even a sane-minded person to go out and build an ark. Flash flooding in many places. Thankfully, it didn't last too long, and it passed over without too much incident. Brendan Byrne is saying, good evening. Magical photos, by the way. What a wonderful thing to experience. Thank you, Brendan. Twice in a lifetime, as I keep saying, twice in a lifetime. There's a reason for that, but we'll get to that. Auntie Joe is watching from Colorado. Here's a gorgeous spring day. Well, I'm glad to hear it, Joe. And spread it around. It's been very grey here all day. But look, we got clear weather for the Aurora on Friday, and we got a lovely day for Uisneach on Saturday. We're not complaining too loudly, truth be told. Lily Shambles is in the house. Good evening, Lily. Trinonawa, Fáilte. Grab a pew, make yourself comfortable. Put the feet up. Throw a blanket across you if you need one. Grab a cup of tea or maybe something else. A dram, maybe. Sharon Piaroj is saying, I keep missing this live. Well, you're here now, which is important. Sharon, thank you for joining us. Hope you're in good form and hope you enjoy the topics that we're going to discuss this evening. Barbara Murphy, Barbara Niwaraku is in the house. Hello all. What gorgeous pictures have been coming out. Thanks. My pleasure, Barbara. And of course, my other pleasure is always to welcome at least one other Murphy to the live stream. We're all over the place, sure, don't you know? Anne McCallum is watching. She says, hello, Antone and all the mighty Tua. Hope all the mothers had a lovely Mother's Day. Your Mother's Day, of course, is a different date to ours. It's a hot and sunny 28 Celsius just now. I was on the way to Uisneach doing the live stream, which you were watching on Saturday, and I was saying, oh, lovely, gorgeous, hot day here, 21 Celsius. And I mentioned the fact that Anne McCallum has had 26 lately. Look at it now, 28. Wow. Thanks so much for Anthony for the live road trip and the wonderful live celebration video and all the gorgeous photos. You're very welcome. Sure, this is my great pleasure. This is what I love doing, sharing the magic of Ireland with you all. Sharon says, I'm on time for once. Do you know, the truth be told, Sharon, that nobody's on time for Live Irish Myths. People drop in at all sorts of times and they say, sorry, I'm late, or I'm just sneaking in at the back. It's like, well, if you're sneaking in, don't announce it, because then I'll know that you're sneaking in and I can chastise you. Of course, I'm joking. Nobody gets chastised because nobody is late. A wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. Adina Sparks is saying, Mythical Ireland Monday. Great start to the week. Hello, Anthony and all the Tua. Hope you're all well. Great photos of the Aurora, Anthony. Thank you, Adina. Hope you're in good form. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoy episode, it is 278, isn't it? Wow, not that far off 200. Although at the rate of one a week, it'll be heading into wintertime by the time we get to 300. Ali is saying hello from sunny Tucson. Hello there, Ali. Good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, our greetings to all the Arizonians, you know. Gia Yves Golair, lovely to see you all, says Nora Gaffney O'Connor. Nora, were you at Uisneach on Saturday? I thought I saw a comment on Facebook today from you saying it was great, but maybe you were talking about the last time you were there. I just wasn't sure, because if you were there, we missed each other, and I'm sorry that we missed each other. John Smith wants to know, on which lunar phases should Bealtaine Samhain be held? Surprised to hear that Bealtaine wasn't held on full moon. Well, if the festivals were lunar, as has been suggested, of course, the date would be movable. And the only movable date in terms of celebration that survived was Easter, which, of course, is tied with Christianity. So, yeah, that date would move from year to year. We fix the cross-quarter dates on the halfway points between the solstices and the equinoxes, which of course are solar days. But good question, John, and I don't think anybody has a definite answer to that. Bonnie Aguilar is saying hello there from Milwaukee in Wisconsin. Bonnie, good afternoon to you. Welcome to Live Irish Myths. Hope you're in great form, and I hope that you're ready for a few stories and photographs. John tells us hello from Texas. Well, always a pleasure. We have a growing fan base or follower base in Texas. A lot of Texans. I was going to say Texonians. No, actually, don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. Hello to you, John. Hope you're in good form and the weather's not too hot there. Britt Griffin is saying hello, folks. Glad to be here. Warm day in Northern Ontario. Glad to hear it, Britt. I think winter is finally gone, is it? Or going? Joseph says, bonsoir. Tronowa. Yes, indeed. Gemma says, missed you at Uisneach. I know. I met so many lovely people. And one of them wasn't Gemma. Although when I was live streaming and taking photographs of the lighting of the fire, there was a lady chatting to me about Aurora, who I recognized in some of your photos. Am I right in saying, Gemma, your daughter had some sort of ceremony, and I think this lady was the lady who performed it. She had something on, some sort of not a headdress, a tiara. I don't know what you'd call it. Was that the lady? Anyway, she didn't introduce herself. We just got chatting. And that's what happens at Uisneach. The atmosphere is so lovely that just total strangers get talking to each other, you know. Liv Cross is saying hello from the southeast. Now, Liv, please be more specific. Is that Southeast Ireland, as in County Wexford, or the southeastern United States, or the southeast of the globe? Liv, I do actually forget where you are, so maybe you might... but come here. You're very welcome. Grab a chair, you know, put on your slippers, or whatever, a cup of tea, or some sort of a brew, or some sort of a dram, and, you know, lap it up. Tom King says, hello there, Anthony and the Mighty Tua. I'm pretty shook, if I'm honest. Enjoyed Uisneach and the Festival of Fires too much. All good, resting now, and looking forward to story time. Well, all I can say is that Tom was in his element at Uisneach on Saturday. Well, he had been there beforehand, and a long old weekend for him. But there was a great buzz around Tom's tent and his display which I thought was lovely to behold. Brian Patrick Crowley. Thanks, Anthony. Amazing picks from Bealtaine. Thank you indeed, Brian Patrick. Always a pleasure to share with the world. Teresa Collins saying, evening, everyone. How's things? I'm looking forward to another Mythical Monday. Good evening to you, Teresa. Hope the form is good. And of course, Teresa's watching on YouTube. Don't forget, any of you who are watching on YouTube, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, subscribe below, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so that you get notified when we're live and notified of new uploads. Rex Fortenberry is in the house. Howdy all. Great to see everyone getting all fired up at Uisneach. Yes, indeed. It was a really lovely day. I think easily the best festival since the pandemic. Very enjoyable. Michael Pike is in the house. Good afternoon to you, Michael. Hope you're in good form. Greetings to Anthony on the Tua. Elaine Dent-Lingenfelter has joined us, finally. I'm joking. She's usually the first to comment. Love the photos, Anthony. It's wheels up tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be in County Meath Wednesday. Brilliant stuff, Elaine. Did you get my reply to your email? And there's no need to go into detail here, but just check your email because I did respond. But if you're heading tomorrow, it might be a couple of days before you're able to. But let me know and get in touch when you're on this side. Dronf, Dronf, I hope I have the pronunciation right, says hi. Good evening. Heather Marie Leaning is here saying, good evening, Anthony Murphy, Tom King, and Tua. Hope you're all well. Well, as usual, I can't vouch for everyone, but I'm in good form. Thank you, Heather Marie, and I hope that we could say the same about you. Snap, we did watch it, says Sandra Boothroyd. Lexi Erickson has joined us. Hello, Anthony, and everyone. Hello, Lexi. And of course, I think, Lexi, you were one of John Wilmot's many followers. Just started off the broadcast tonight by paying tribute to John and saying how sad we are all to hear of his passing. Big loss. And I know that yourself and many others who tune in here on Mythical Ireland are also avid followers of the Woodland Bard. Liv Cross is saying hello to Tom. I'm surprised Tom's still awake, to be honest with you. He must be exhausted. Samantha Healy says, good evening, the mighty Tua, and hello, Anthony. Good evening to you, Samantha. Conas Atatu. Amazing sight here in Switzerland, says Dronf. Kind of strange on 6-meter Aurora on telephony. People sounded like Daleks. Oh, yeah. The CW signals on Morse code, that is, we're talking about ham radio here. The auroral 6 meters, the auroral Morse signals are incredible. Instead of the do-do-do-do-do-do-do, you get almost sounds like a sort of a cross between a Dalek and a Wookiee trying to communicate, you know. Any trips coming up, says Joseph. Yeah, I have Fornox on Saturday, if anyone's interested. The Wonders of Fornox tour this Saturday, the 18th of May at 2 p.m. I will share that link, actually, just in case anybody is interested. Anybody is in Ireland and is interested in participating. I'll share that there. There will be more tours. I have to pick dates and just organize and schedule them all. But a lot of people actually at Uisneach asking the same thing. So thank you for the prompt, Joseph. John, surprised to hear that Bealtaine was celebrated on a waxing moon rather than a full moon. Well, to be honest, it's got more to do. Well, it's probably got to do with a lot of consequences of the Gregorian calendar. It's generally held close to the astronomical Bealtaine, and because, as I said earlier about the movements of the moon, if you were to hold it, say, on a waxing moon or a full moon, the date would vary wildly every year, you know. Erica Bow is here. Hello there, Erica. Good afternoon to you. Hope you're in good form. Haven't seen you in a while. I hope you're in Actually, great form. Anthony Kelly says, Anthony, you'll get to Newgrange quicker from next Monday. Obelisk Bridge will reopen. Yes, thank you for that news. And well, I kind of knew because every politician here, even some I've never heard of, are talking about it. But yes, good news, Anthony, indeed. Caroline Dash is in Gateshead, where my cat Nietzsche is still sunbathing in the garden. Brilliant. Hello, Caroline, and good evening to you. Two Desks Productions. Hello, just caught your interview on story archaeology. Loved hearing my two favourite live streams, podcast, intersect. Brilliant stuff. And welcome to Live Irish Myths. Hope you are in good form. Uisneach looked fabulous, says Samantha. It was fabulous. Barb Jordan has joined us. Hello, Barb. I was, says Nora. Got there very late. Missed each other completely. I'm very disappointed. But sure, come here. What can you do? I spent a long time down at the Stonehut Divisions after the fire was dying down, and I got some lovely pictures down there. Archaeoastronomy Database is telling us that's Ty. Hi, friends. The Aurora was amazing. My first viewing, and I was completely astonished. I can't help but wonder what the ancients thought of this magnificent phenomenon. Yes, indeed. Samantha says, photos of the Aurora are beautiful. 10 Celsius here now. The Cooley Mountains look very misty, but mythical too. Yeah, misty. That's how it is a lot in Ireland, isn't it? Am I missing anyone? I don't want to miss anyone. Brian Patrick Crowley is in Florida. Wow. Hope it's nice there, Brian. Hope it's a nice temperature. Astro is saying 75 degrees Fahrenheit in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Yeah. Do you happen to know Joe Van Cleve? He's a big typewriter aficionado who I follow on YouTube, who I believe is based in Albuquerque. And the typewriter club there, I believe, is called Albuquerque. Theresa K. Drevdal says, I loved your photos from Friday night and good midday to you from here in beautiful Oregon. Well, good afternoon to our friends on the Pacific coast of the States. Theresa, great to see you. I hope you're in good form. The rain up here in Ross Trevor area was like a flood. Yeah, we had something similar. I hope I'm not missing anyone. If I happen to miss your comment, please do prompt me. You know, the face in the fire photo was amazing, says Nora. Quite interesting. I didn't see it until after I shared it. And then people were saying, look at the face, look at the face. So, yeah, interesting stuff. Last week, Barbara is telling Tom, I finally got my big stump set upright to pound metal on. It's been in my yard for over a year, but at about 350 pounds, I couldn't lift it. Wow. Astro says, I'm mostly in Tucson these days, but recent transplant from the Midwest. Mark Gordon is in Iowa. Good afternoon, Mark. Thank you for the compliments. And yeah, lots to come. Roberta Robbins is saying, I am looking at joining you for Fornox this Saturday. Yay. Brilliant. Well, you know where to get the tickets. MythicalIreland.com tours page. I look forward to seeing you there. Valentina is saying hello from Glastonbury, where I totally missed out on all the auroras. But from pics, I can say they looked amazing. They were amazing. Yeah. Rowan Grove has joined us. Finally managed to make a live one. Brilliant stuff. I tell you, things are looking up. We've got Rowan Grove and Erica Bow in the house. And we have the likes of Nora Gaffney O'Connor. I tell you, this is just the cool and the gang, you know. If I missed your comment, please do. Rowan Grove, yeah, I just caught you there before it got embarrassing, before I had to be prompted. Caroline definitely saw a face in the fire. Maybe Bambi Thug summoned it during Eurovision. Yes, indeed. What a interesting musical performance and a bit of theatre. I enjoyed it, but not to everybody's taste. Tuesday Thompson is wishing us all a happy Mythology Monday. Now, what are we talking about today? Oh, yeah, well, I mean, 3 subjects: Aurora borealis, Uisneach Bealtaine Fire, and this, the latest exciting arrival at the Mythical Ireland Library, the Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. Barbara G. Walker. Quite a reaction to that when I shared it online. Not all of it positive. Some people say she's a bit dodgy and sort of, you know, some of the things she writes are not necessarily backed up by the best sources. But as usual with all these things, I'll approach it with an open mind. I was very interested in some of the things she wrote, so I'm going to refer to a couple of the sections from the book and do some comparative work, or some comparatives. We'll do some comparative comparisons with Irish mythology, and I just thought there were some insights there to be gleaned. And look, as I always say, I think it's very healthy to speculate, to accumulate. But we're not talking about in the business sense. We're talking about in the sense of gaining knowledge. Veronica Casey has joined us from a warm Wiltshire. Well, I'm glad to hear it. It cooled down an awful lot here after yesterday's big thunderstorm. Oh, a new book. There's a shock, says Nora. No, the only shock is where the hell am I going to put them? You know, I'm beginning to think I'm going to have to open several libraries in different rooms of the house. You know, Women's Encyclopedia is cool, says Lexi. Well, there is a vote of confidence. All the old stock and brew here tonight. Brilliant, says Nora. It feels like old times. It feels back in 2020. Cool and the gang are here, you know. Yeah, Aurora. So on Friday afternoon, it became obvious that following the transit of active region 3665, was it, across the face of the sun, one of the biggest sunspot clusters of recent years. An enormous, 3664, AR active region 3664. It was emitting lots and lots of coronal mass ejections, Earth directed. So the space weather forecasters were basically saying, yeah, there's a high chance of aurora. And then we saw the KP index go sky high. So just to give you an idea, that's in the best layman's terms that I can give you, that is a measurement of how much solar energy is exciting the ions in the upper atmosphere of the Earth, the ionosphere. And when the KP index reaches 5, we can expect to begin to see aurora in Ireland, but only on the northern horizon. When it gets to 6 or 7, we expect to see maybe aurora higher up in the sky. But long before the sun set on Friday, the KP index was 8.67. And so I just said to Anne, I said, we are going out with the cameras. I'm going out with the cameras. Would you like to come? She said, yeah, definitely. But we had to wait for several hours. At 8.67, you are absolutely guaranteed aurora. And when we got to Newgrange, there were about 20 photographers there. It's highly unusual. I'm usually there on my own. And as soon as it got dark, the twilight was deepening, and as soon as it got dark enough, we could immediately see aurora way higher in the sky than you would normally see them. And within a short time, maybe about 15-20 minutes, we could see that the aurora was actually pretty much overhead. In fact, not even north overhead, but a little bit to the south, and emanating from high in the sky, and big deep curtains or arcs all the way down to the eastern and western horizons. Now, it's not the first time I've seen it. I last witnessed overhead aurora in the year 2004. I believe that was November. Back then, there was no social media. A lot of people didn't have the internet. We didn't have smartphones. We only had brick mobile phones. So a lot of people weren't aware that it was happening. I was out with a digital camera, which was less than... That was the very, very early days of digital photography. I did capture pictures of it. I don't have the high-res originals. I don't know where they are. They're lost on a disk or a hard drive somewhere. I only have very, very small, low-resolution versions of those. I must share those, actually, just to show you. So it wasn't unprecedented for me, but for an awful lot of people who saw Friday's display. I'm talking about here in Ireland specifically, but I'm sure this is shared across the states. The lower latitude states that wouldn't be used to overhead aurora. A phenomenal, beautiful display. And the gorgeous thing was, it had been a warm day. There was no wind. There was very little cloud and no rain. And because it had been dry, it was just gorgeous. I was out photographing the aurora at night with just a shirt on, no jumper, no coat, which is highly unusual in itself. And thankfully, for once, the Irish weather played ball, because many times with one-off astronomical phenomena, like an eclipse or something like that, you miss it entirely because of overcast weather. That total eclipse that you had a few weeks ago in the States and Canada, we were to see a partial eclipse as the sun went down, but it was entirely overcast that day and raining, so there wasn't a hope of seeing anything. So we were very blessed on Friday. Myself and Anne spent about 3 hours. We eventually came home at around 2:30 in the morning, having spent time at Newgrange and Douth. And to be honest with you, it was hard at times to remember I'm here to take photographs, because one of the things about so much about the modern digital technological internet world is the fact that you're so people like to take photos and video and live stream and all the rest. You often have a camera or a phone between you and what's happening. And so sometimes you just have to kind of just take that away or move away from it and I did that several times, where I'm just like, don't, just forget about the camera and the phone for a minute and just enjoy it. What a spectacle. And it was Anne that said to me, I think I can see pink up there. My color eyesight wouldn't be great. I have red-green deficiency color blindness, as I think I've said many occasions in the past. But she said, I can see pink up there. And I said, can you? And so I took a long exposure photo, and sure enough, there it was. And that photo of the corona, as they call it, the radiant point of the aurora, the amount of colors in that was just phenomenal. But anyway, there were pulsating beams of sort of blue and purple behind Newgrange, and then higher up green. And we usually see the green behind Newgrange, So this was highly unusual. And it meant that I was able to get a lot of photographs, and every one of them was different, because, of course, aurora is sort of like a constantly moving and flickering phenomenon. If you haven't seen it, you're missing out on one of the beautiful displays of nature. Of course, if you live in a big city, especially on the east of the States, if you live in the likes of New York or New Jersey, Philadelphia, Washington, Boston, you're going to have to travel a long way inland, maybe 50 miles anyway, but maybe 100 miles to get away from those big city lights. Although they were bright enough to be seen from urban areas here in Ireland. And one thing that I loved about Friday night and Saturday morning was my Facebook and Instagram feed were just full of aurora photographs, because the quality of many smartphone cameras now is so good that people can capture very good images that previously only professional photographers could obtain. So that was lovely to see. Of course, there were several other photographers at Newgrange, so I wasn't the only one to get photographs of the aurora at Newgrange. But went to Douth, where the only other photographer there was Ken Williams, my good friend. And we both captured what I think are some magical views. It was to continue on Saturday. The KP index stayed at 8.67 all day on Saturday until sunset. And around about the time the fire was being lit at Uisneach, the KP index suddenly dropped, and there was no aurora when it got dark, which is sad. But at the same time, I can't be greedy. I think it would be expecting an awful lot for two magnificent displays back to back. Hard to know what's going to happen next. I haven't really been following it, because they did say there were several coronal mass ejections and that they expected activity for several days in a row. So I think, though, the main event is over. But very, very glad to have witnessed it and to have captured images of it. Now, before we go to the next subject, I am going to just catch up on any comments. To celebrate everyone coming back, we need a dad joke, says Brendan. Yeah. Are you sure you want to go down that road? Yeah. Okay, give me a moment, because I'm not immediately remembering any of the ones that I've heard in the last week. I was arguing with a guy in a pub the other day who insisted that he was a pop star from the 1980s. I didn't believe him, but he was adamant. There's a certain portion of the US and Canadian viewers who I don't think will understand that or get that. Maybe I'm wrong. Don't judge, Anthony. One moment, please. I'm getting distracted here. Now, who else? Did I miss anybody coming in? John McCormick is here. Hi, Anthony. Hope you're well. Great photos of the Aurora over Newgrange. What a fabulous, amazing, twice in a lifetime so far anyway. 20 years since I saw anything like it. Absolutely fabulous. So delighted to be able to see it and to photograph it. Mark Gordon, what is this? What has a spine but no bones? A book. I like it. Very on theme, really. You know? Give me 1 second. I'm getting distracted here. Someone is looking for my attention here, and I just have to give them a quick answer. Who else? Liv Cross slept through it. I know a few people who slept through it. Ola Conrad is here from Denmark. Hello, Ola. A very good evening to you. Hope that you got to see the Aurora on Friday. Adina says the Aurora was even seen here in New Mexico. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see it. Oh, yeah, because that's quite far south, isn't it? You know, seeing it is a major bucket list item, says Barbara. I can imagine. I want to order a photo, but you posted too many gorgeous pictures, says Lexi. I know, yeah. What's they call that? Buyer exhaustion or something, or selector's exhaustion. If you're interested, folks, I do have a number of limited edition prints. There's free postage on those, by the way. And I'll share that link right now if you're interested. There's also the 3 for 2, so don't forget that. You can buy 3 for the price of 2. I'm just sharing those. So that link that I'm just sharing in the comments contains 5 of the images taken last Friday, among other ones. Very weak, unfortunately. Possibly what happened was it was sort of passed over you and was seen better at lower latitudes, which is amazing. The full Irish Gary is in the house. Good evening, and great and good to the Aurora must have been like magic to our ancestors. Andrew, do you have ever seen a sunrise rainbow? Got some snaps at 5:30 a.m. over the Hellfire Club. No, I won't say no. I possibly have. I've seen a sunset rainbow. The amazing thing about the rainbows is that the size of the rainbow is it's related to the height of the sun. So if the sun is high in the sky, the rainbow is very low. But if the sun is low in the sky, the rainbow is very high. So share those if you want, Gary, on the Mythical Ireland community. Would love to see them. Monica Regley, it was so late, I fell asleep. That's perfectly okay, Monica. You woke up again, and you're here. And hello. Hope you're in good form. Latonia is saying, was seen as far south to Fort Myers in Florida. Wow. And that's a long way south of the latitude of Ireland. We're at 53 degrees north of the equator here. Caroline says, we came back from London, hospital appointment, and managed to catch a bit of it at 1:30 a.m. at Newbiggin by the sea. Brilliant. It's great to have been able to just see it. I mean, never mind photograph it, you know. But I think the major thing about it was that it being Friday night, you know, a lot of people sort of finished work for the week and looking forward to the weekend. It being warm and dry and clear, and it being forecast to be a spectacular display meant an awful lot of people were out ready to photograph it. And even those who weren't out, I'm just looking at the colours in the sky. It's been grey all day, and suddenly I'm seeing a bit of yellow in the clouds. You know, even those who were indoors watching TV, I was speaking to another photographer friend of mine today who said, I was indoors watching television with the feet up, and my daughter said, you have to go out and see this. And suddenly they're all out taking photographs, you know. But yeah, it was lovely. And just interesting to be standing under the stars at midnight and 1 a.m., not wearing a jumper or a coat, not feeling cold at all, not being damp, and watching this awesome display of nature, you know. Right now, I'm looking at or I was a moment ago, I was looking at the space weather website, and the KP index is 2.67 now, which is very quiet. So there will not be aurora based on those figures. Were you at Newgrange for the Mother of Pearl clouds? Was that last solstice or 2 solstices ago, Gemma? I was, and I have some nice pictures of that. Yeah. Nothing here in Middle England, sorry, says Lily. Really? Surprised. Was it cloudy? Because it really should have been seen in the middle of England if it was seen here in Ireland, you know. Desiree has joined us from a hot and muggy Louisiana. I made it here safely. Sorry I'm late. I was shopping with my mom. What a brilliant excuse to miss the first part of Live Irish Myths. Brilliant. I say shopping with your mom is a far better excuse than, for instance, I was working, you know. I mean, everybody knows, unless you're flying an airplane, you can stick on a little screen in the corner and watch. Oh, did I say that out loud? No. Sorry, boss. You just skip past this bit. Of course, these days, me being self-employed, I'm the boss. 2023. Yeah, I do. And I have pictures of it. Quite extraordinary. What time is the Fornox tour, says Elaine? It is at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. on Saturday is the tour time, Elaine. Right. What's the next subject? Bealtaine. So the very next day, having not gone to bed till 3 a.m., I'm heading to Uisneach because I was giving a talk for the Bealtaine Fire Festival. Now, I went later than I normally would because, I'll be honest, I got out of bed late on Saturday morning. I stayed in bed till nearly the middle of the day because I was quite tired. Oh, there's a lovely colour in the sky there now. Clouds are finally breaking after a day of rain and greyness. We have some lovely golden colours in the sky there now. Yeah, I was given a talk at 6 p.m. So there are... Where are your pictures? Cannot see them on Facebook. Really? So, Ulla, are you talking about the Aurora? You just literally go to facebook.com/Mythical Ireland and scroll down a couple of posts and you'll see, a few posts, but they're all there. Okay, more than a few posts. Scroll down about 10 posts or so and you'll see fairly substantial collections. Or on the Mythical Ireland community, or if you're on Instagram, on Mythical Ireland Instagram. Southern Lights also given a very good display to Australia, says Karen. Yes, don't forget that. I saw somebody from New Zealand sharing pictures of the Aurora australis, which is what they're called in the Southern Hemisphere. Yes, we'll scroll more then. Yeah, you have to scroll past all the Uisneach stuff, you see, and anything else I've been sharing. The Fornox tour, of course. And just a reminder for all the viewers, if you're in Ireland, I'm giving a Fornox tour on Saturday coming, the 18th at 2 p.m. And you can get your tickets on mythicalireland.com on the tours page. So Uisneach, arrived there on the top of the hill around 5:30 or so. And all I can say is that the atmosphere was joyous. Eclectic. The weather brought out the best in people, and the fact that it had been dry for the whole week meant the ground was dry, which meant that people could sit down and stretch out on the grass if they wanted to, and there was just a lovely atmosphere, A good friend of Mythical Ireland, Moncon McGann, lit the fire this year, which was greatly exciting. You may have seen my live stream of the lighting of the fire on the Mythical Ireland Facebook page. Lots of you did, I know, because there was lots of interaction on it. I didn't speak during the live stream until the very end because I just didn't want to interrupt the whole thing. I just wanted you to be able to sort of see and hear for yourselves. The mood was celebratory. Everybody I met was in good form. It was an enormous pleasure for me to meet so many familiar faces, first of all. So many of what we would call the Mythflix Tua and the Mythical Ireland community. And then people who I didn't know, but who knew me because they said, we follow you, I follow you online, and we watch your live streams, or I've read your books, or I'm a big fan of your website, or whatever. It was lovely, really, really lovely. And I didn't encounter a single sort of negative situation, or I didn't see anybody under particular duress or stress. Everybody looked to be happy. Uisneach Fire Festival brings, as you can imagine, all kinds of people. So, get everything from witches and pagans, and adherents to various beliefs, to families, children, um, and a lot of just very nice people all around, in fairness. Yeah, it was a festive occasion, and I think, wasn't it last year and the year before, there had been rain and a bit of dampness, and it just makes it slightly more challenging, Yeah, really nice to meet so many lovely people. Thank you to all of those who came to see my talk. I'm glad to say that the speaker's tent, which is a large tent, was packed for the occasion. Lovely to meet so many people afterwards, and to sign books, and to get into photographs and all the rest. The lighting of the fire was just fab. Yeah. Last year, I stayed down off the peak of the hill to get photographs of the procession as it passed, which I was very glad I did. But this year, it was lovely to be back up close to the fire when it was lit. And of course, you'll have seen that photograph that I shared, and I'm going to share it again. A few people have been commenting on it this evening. For instance, Ola. Yeah, and as I said earlier, I didn't even notice the face until after I'd shared the photo online, and then people started saying, "Hey, look at the face." So very interesting. Yeah, and I was kind of perfectly positioned because I had a view of the opening into the heart of the hearth. Did you get it? The heart of the hearth, the heart of the fire. I could name names in terms of people that I met, but I don't really want to do that, because once you start naming names, you leave people out. But I do, of course, Tom. That goes without saying. Myself and Tom spent a good bit of time together on Saturday. It was a great pleasure to meet Jack Roberts, who I hadn't seen. I don't think I've met Jack since before the pandemic. Jack was given the last of the talks of the evening. So also giving a talk was Claire Tuffy, the former manager of Brunabonia. She did a talk about the sunrises at Newgrange. And, I think her claim to fame is she's seen more winter solstice sunlight events in the chamber of Newgrange. Oh, that's just gorgeous. I wish I could be out with the camera right now. Sorry. But I wish I could also stay here with you guys. I think she's seen more sunrise illuminations of Newgrange chamber than any human being in the history of the planet. But Jack, yeah, it was great to meet Jack, and I got a chance to pay tribute to him during my talk, because he was sitting in the audience, and of course mentioned the late Martin Brennan, because Martin Brennan and Jack Roberts made some very significant discoveries in relation to the astronomical alignments of many Irish Neolithic monuments back in the early 1980s, Hello, friends. That's Marcia Downs. Those Aurora pictures were truly amazing. Ireland and Scotland were very fortunate in seeing some of the deepest colours of the lights. Yeah, I know. And that's just one thing about the photographs, because my eyes don't pick up the colours just as vividly, It's great. It's true, Anthony. Lovely, happy crowd. Your video of Uisneach was great, very clear, and I could hear every word that Monaghan said. Well done, a great video. Thanks, Nora. Glad you enjoyed it. I wish we had Bealtaine Fires here, said Ulla. Do you know how a tradition starts? It starts with one person lighting a fire. That's how it starts. Ola, be the person. You start it. And in 10 years, we'll be looking in from around the world going, look at what Ulla started. Oh, the reinvigoration. I think you probably had Bealtaine fires in Denmark. I know, amazingly, when I was in Riga in Latvia, which has to be 15 years ago now, I was amazed to read in the hotel we were staying in about the midsummer fires tradition that, well, not amazed, but that this was prevalent all over Europe, and that's midsummer, of course. But yeah, if you want a reinvigorated Bealtaine fires tradition in Denmark, you'll be the one to light the fire. You start it again. Myfanwy is here very late, I'm afraid, but over the moon to be joining you all tonight. I tried to spot the aurora in mid-Wales. I'm in a valley here. Don't know if that makes a difference, but friends up in the hill took incredible photos. I might have captured a slight green tinge. It depends, but I mean, the aurora here was overhead, so I think even in a valley, you probably would have got something, Girl says, I got to see it in Idaho, about 10 miles due west from the Yellowstone border. Stunning and magical. Brilliant stuff. Glad to hear that you got to see it. Okay, so the have I missed anything on Uisneach? I spent, as I said, a bit of time down at Isle na Muireann then after the fire began to die down, and again met some lovely people. Love. All I wish about Uisneach is that I could have stayed overnight, which is, I suppose, what a lot of people wish. But it's a private farm, and we're very glad that David Clark and Angela have done the things they've done to reinvigorate the ancient traditions of Uisneach. So we're very grateful to be able to spend that quality, valuable time there. But I do I kind of wished I could just stretch out a blanket on the ground and watch the stars and just doze off to sleep and worry about traveling home the next morning, but I had to be up on Sunday morning. And it was about an hour and a half of a drive home, I guess next Saturday, there will be a great chance of more auroras. Maybe a big thing, really. Yeah, not sure about that, simply because I think unless there's, the flares generally, the CMEs generally only take 2 or 3 days to reach Ireland. John Main has joined us. No aurora in foggy San Francisco, unfortunately. Bummer. But there might be another time, Anyway, I'm conscious of the fact that it's 10 to 9 now, and I do want to talk about the Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. Now, as I said, there were lots of people saying it's a brilliant book and lots of people saying they learned a lot from it, but there were some cautionary comments on Facebook in particular saying, just be careful. Now, I was looking at our sources, and one criticism was that for the Egyptian stuff, she was quoting an awful lot from Wallace Budge, who I suppose, as an authority on ancient Egypt, is an older authority, and there would be much more up-to-date scholarship. But for instance, on the Celtic stuff, to you and I, the Irish, Welsh, Scottish stuff, she was referring to the likes of Rhys and Rhys, Celtic Heritage, which I think is a brilliant book, and I have a lot of time and respect for. So what I propose to do, this, by the way, this is a very comprehensive encyclopedia. It's massive. Published in 1983. I'm not sure about republication and reissues, and this one just says copyright 1983. Okay. But this must be a reprint, or unless it was... It says copyright 1983, and there's no information about reprints. But in the inside cover, it says the Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets, honoured by the London Times Educational Supplement as 1986 Book of the Year. So presumably this is some sort of a reprint. But anyway, I read some sections of it, and I was like, wow, there are some interesting comparisons to be made here with Irish mythology. So I am going to speak about a couple of them, if you allow me to. Can I find them now? I did make notes. and I've only literally dipped in and out of it. It is wonderfully comprehensive. Where has this book been for the last 25 years of my life? Because it was published a good few years before I even started the whole Mythical Ireland journey, you know. What's the name of this book, says Movanwi? It's called The Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets by Barbara G. Walker. Originally published by, or this was published by Harper San Francisco, a division of HarperCollins Publishers. Yes, so I wanted to talk about the moon and then the menstrual calendar, believe it or not. There are many things that I would also like to talk about. I'll talk about at some point the Milky Way, for instance, left hand, and all that stuff about widdershins and Jeshel and Tuhl and how to walk around the well and all of the rest. So let me just read the moon section and where there are comparisons to be made. We'll do some comparative exploration. Is everybody okay with that? I hope you're all still enjoying the live stream. Did I share the link? You can also, if you're so interested, if you're so inclined, you can purchase a limited edition print of the face in the fire photo. I'm just going to share that as a link there. Movanwe, I think, is talking to Nora, I think it might be, but she says, well, it's great to have you back. You've saved yourself a few euros by having a break. Anthony's been tempting us with books left, right, and centre. I've run out of bookcase space. Yes, well, I'm sorry for tempting you, but, you know, if you're so tempted, then, yeah, don't watch. But then you can't watch any episode because I always talk about books. I mean, has there been a single episode in which I haven't spoken about books? And never mind all that, there's always been a big display of books behind me anyway, you know, but must get around to reading them sometime, you know. Okay, Egyptian priests style the moon the mother of the universe. Plutarch said, because the moon, quote, having the light which makes moist and pregnant, is promotive of the generation of living beings and the fructification of plants, unquote. And there are comprehensive footnotes. They're very abbreviated, so it just gives the surname and the letters, the acronym is for the book, and then the page number, and then you have to refer to the bibliography. Upper Egypt used to be called Chemenu, land of the moon. Now, the reason I was interested in this is, of course, because of my work around Bowen in particular, in Island of the Setting Sun, In Search of Ireland's Ancient Astronomers, my first book, in which I spoke about Bowen representing the moon. And I talked about the importance of the moon to Neolithic astronomy, because I felt a very strong focus on the sun in academic scholarship and archaeology and archaeoastronomy. So this will be interesting, I think. By the way, if you're interested in a signed copy of Island of the Setting Sun, I'll share that link there too. In worship of the heavenly bodies, primacy was always assigned to the moon. There is a footnote there which is Cumont, A-R-G-R, and if you go to the bibliography, we'll look for C-U-M-O-N-T, Cumont, Oriental Religions in Roman Paganism, New York, Dover Publications, 1956. So yeah, I suppose if I were referring to this book in my footnotes for any work that I might do in the future, one of the things I'd have to do is to make sure to look at maybe more up-to-date sources, because this was, after all, published 40 years ago. The year this was published, I wasn't even 10 years old. And some of the books and sources it refers to are much older again. So, yeah, naturally I would do that. But I still think it's very interesting. Babylonians gave the moon precedence over the sun. Oriental nations in general worshipped the moon before the sun. Moses Maimonides, I don't know how to pronounce that because it's not a name I'm familiar. Moses Maimonides, is it Maimonides? Said moon worship was the religion of Adam. The Gnostic sect of Nassians believed in a primordial being known as the heavenly horn of the moon. The moon was the eternal great mother, which I think is very important. In Central Asia, it was said the moon is the goddess's mirror, reflecting everything in the world, like the mirror of Maya. And so, just again, referring back to Bowen, the fact that Bruna Boine is named after Bowen. Okay, she's the river goddess, but she's much more than that, because there's a whole thing there about the cow and Bowen's dismemberment and the disappearing of the moon as its phases disappear into the dawn, day after day. And stories that I related in Island of the Setting Sun that could be interpreted as relating to sort of the dying moon and the cow being sort of dismembered, as it were, and the Milky Way being the trail of the cow, or in some cases the white mare, you know. Lexi says, the year the book was published, I was teaching at the university. You are a child, lol. Yeah. Yes, they say you're only as young as you feel. So, yeah, I feel okay, you know. John Main is pointing out that it's available on thrift books for $26. Well, I would be honest, I think $26 is a steal. However, you really do not want to know how much I paid for this copy. You don't want to know. And I know that none of you will ask how much I paid for this copy. Nobody will ask. Many savages, so that's a word we wouldn't use in the 2020s, but many savages revere the moon more than the sun, reasoning that the moon mother gives her light at night when it is needed, whereas the sun shines only by day. This belief presupposes that sunlight and daylight are not the same, a common idea among primitives. Writers of the Bible made this same mistake. They said God created light, daylight, before the sun and the moon. And that's Genesis 1:5, verses 5 and 16. Ashanti people had a generic term for all deities, Boshun, moon. Now, I think that's curious because Boshun, and I don't know if it's linguistically related, but Bowen's name, Bow Finn, is the white cow. I wonder whether bow from bovine. And I'm just taking a note to that effect. In the Basque language, the words for deity and moon were the same. Now, as I said, if I was going deeper into this than we're going tonight, I'd be looking for more sources to back that up. I'm taking her at face value. I just because I'm simply not aware of the academic weight of Barbara Walker, and I mean her absolutely no disrespect or I don't want to demean the work. It's just simply I'm not familiar enough with it to know, and I would obviously try to become so. Sioux Indians call the moon the old woman who never dies, and if you've read Return to Segish, you'll know that. Again, I've explored that theme instead of exploring it from a left brain point of view and looking at the mechanics and the astronomy and the alignments and all of that. This is a more poetic, imaginative, mythological exploration from the right brain. And you'll know that there's a chapter called Bowen Remade. And I think when you read that, you get an insight into the way I was thinking about what the moon meant. And since I published Return to Segish, the work of Mircea Eliade has become very interesting, particularly his book, The Myth of the Eternal Return. Anyway, I'm digressing slightly because I want to at least read the whole section about the moon and possibly the menstrual cycle as well, because it's related. Monica, I need to leave you. We get a full aurora here in central Switzerland right now. I'll get on a hill for photos. Enjoy that, Monica. It's still bright here, and still rather cloudy. So, um, Movana says, just sidetracking, but I've been reading Lilith by George MacDonald, a story where the moon features as a powerful character and Adam features in the story too. It's a mad tale if you ever read it. I'm only halfway through. Lilith, I've heard of it. It's not in my library, so I'll have to get a copy. Thank you for the recommendation. I've nowhere to put it, but I'll get it anyway, you know. Priceless Wisdom is saying, Martina, who I don't think I'd said hello to earlier. Hello, Martina, and welcome to the live stream. Hope you're in good form. Iroquois called her the Eternal One. Rulers in the Eritrean zone of South Africa bore the goddess name Moon. Ancient rulers of the Tutsi tribe were named Mwezi or Mwezi, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, which means moon. The Gaelic name, Irish, of the moon, Gialach, came from Gala or Galata, original moon mother of Gaelic and Gaulish tribes. Now, that bit, I would definitely follow up checking other sources. I know Gialach is one of the Irish names for the moon, but this idea that it came from Gala or Galata, I'm not sure about. Britain used to be called Albion, the milk-white moon goddess. Can anybody back that up? I was sort of interested in that, but I just wasn't sure. So is there anybody here who can immediately back that up without me having to go down a rabbit hole and do lots of Google searching? Persians call the moon Metra or Matra, mother, quote, whose love penetrated everywhere, unquote. The root word for both moon and mind was the Indo-European manas, mana, or men, M-A-N-A-S, M-A-N-A, or M-E-N, representing the great mother's wise blood in women governed by the moon. Its derivative, mania or mania, used to mean ecstatic revelation, just as lunacy used to mean possession by the spirit of Luna, the moon. To be moon-touched or moonstruck meant to be chosen by the goddess. A moon calf was one carried away by love of her. When patriarchal thinkers belittled the goddess, these words came to mean mere craziness. I would believe that bit, absolutely. Fascinating, isn't it, how lunacy and mania became negative terms where once they might not have been negative at all. The moonstruck person was described as silly, a word that formerly meant blessed, possibly derived from Selene, the moon, S-E-L-E-N-E. I told you this was fascinating. Martina is saying hello. Hello, Martina. Caroline Dash is saying, I was 3 when it was first published. You're only a whippersnapper. You're only a young sorry, Lexi is saying Barbara Walker is respected in women's groups. I was a little bit surprised. Just a lot of praise for it, but there was sort of 1 or 2 or 3 sort of precautionary, be careful, not. For some reason, your comment won't stay on the screen. Apologies. So yeah, I will, of course, bear all that in mind, but I really enjoyed what I've been reading so far. To the Greeks, menos, M-E-N-O-S, meant both moon and power. To the Romans, the morality of the moon goddess was superior to that of the sun god, Plutarch said. The effects of the moon, this is quote, the effects of the moon are similar to the effects of reason and wisdom, whereas those of the sun appear to be brought about by physical force and violence. Well, there you go. In many cultures, the moon goddess and the creatress were one and the same. Well, what do you know but Bowen? And I've written about this in the monograph, the only book ever written about Bowen, entirely about Bowen. And I said that not only is she associated with the moon, but she's associated with a major creation myth. The creation of the Boyne, which to me is much more about just a river that runs through Ireland. Its connection with the Milky Way, it's like the cosmic river. So yeah, here we go. We have the moon goddess and the creatress. So Bowen equals moon and creation mythology of the Boyne, or what we might call the cosmic river, aka Milky Way. Polynesians called the creatress Hina, or Hina, I don't know how to pronounce that, Hina, Moon. She was the first woman, and every woman is a Wahine, Whine, Wahine, made in the image of Hina, or Hina. To the Finns, the creatress was Luonnotar, Luonnotar, Luna, the moon. She brooded over the sea until she brought forth the world egg, heaven and earth. Scandinavians sometimes called the creatress Mardol, moon shining over the sea. Isn't it lovely? So there's a lot going on in the comments. I'm going to try my best to keep up. I did see a comment there from Lexi, wanted to expand, but it's disappeared on me. She was expanding, saying that something about Barbara, a woman of the 80s. Apparently Albion is translated as White Land. Yeah, White Land, Latin correction. I'm liking where this book is going as a selenophile, says Nora. The moon goddess created time with all its cycles of creation, growth, decline, and destruction, which is why ancient calendars were based on phases of the moon and menstrual cycles. So what I'm fascinated about in this discussion is I'm just going to call a spade here. I'm going to speak openly for a moment. I think I generally do, but this is going to be just, I'm not intending to be scathing to create controversy, but it would seem to me that a lot of the people who've written about the monuments, particularly of the Boyne Valley, are sort of scholarly men. There are women who are writing about archaeology, of course, but the discussion has tended to sort of concentrate on the factual and the mechanical and the empirical and the measurements and the types of stone and directions and azimuths and all that stuff. And it seems that the mystical dimension and the spiritual dimension of the whole thing is left to other writers. And it's funny how the two can seem so far apart at times, Eamon is saying hello from Chicago. Good afternoon to you, Eamon. Hope you're in good form. I hope you're well and that you're enjoying the live stream. But I just think this is all interesting about how the debate about the alignment of monuments concentrates so thoroughly on the sun, and there's barely any mention of the moon, which is why, Island of the Setting Sun continues to be a sort of slightly alternative view, because I've postulated that the moon has to be important because you can't regulate your life around the sun. Yes, of course, centrally you do, because its light and its heat makes everything happen agriculturally. But I mean, in terms of time and the calendar, the moon is what gives you the divisions of time, The moon still determines agricultural work in some parts of India. Indonesian moon priestesses were responsible for finding the right phase of the moon for every undertaking. By the way, you may know of a group called Moon Mana. My good friend Dr. Karen Ward, is heavily involved there. I think she's one of the leaders there. And for me, that's just like reclaiming that space that has been vacant in certainly the scholarly discussion over the last half century to full century to the last probably few centuries, where it just seems that anybody studying ancient monuments in Ireland and astronomy, and there are very few people who are sort of well versed in both disciplines, tend to be so thoroughly fixated on the sun. You just say, well, hang on, don't you know that the moon actually shines into Newgrange, Something that's still, believe it or not, after all these bloody years, I've been saying it for 25 years, nobody has yet photographed the moon in Newgrange. Now, in fairness to Claire Tuffy, when she was in charge of Newgrange, she invited myself and Ken Williams over to Newgrange one evening when the full moon, or the just past full moon, was going to be rising in alignment with the passage and chamber. But it was bloody cloudy and raining that evening. So thank you, Claire, for at least wanting to find an answer to the question. But I mean, bloody hell, all the pictures we have of the sun shining into Newgrange, and nobody has even bothered to go and, with very few exceptions, Richard Moore and my good friend, the late Gillies MacBain, were part of a small group of people who were at Newgrange in the summer of possibly the year 2000. That long ago, and again an unsuccessful observation because of cloud. The Dyaks prayed to the moon for children, increase of cattle, and abundant crops. They said she was the cause and measurer of time. Greeks said the same of Demeter, whose priests were called sons of the moon. Peruvians called the moon either Mama Quilla. Is that double L? Is that sort of Spanish, or Peru? Is that Portuguese? Is it pronounced Quilla? Or Mama Oglo, Oglo, sometimes identifying the two as mother and daughter, like Demeter and Kor. Mama Quilla married the sun and gave birth to Mama Oglo, Egg, the moon maiden, and her brother, the sun man. And I just wonder about that. I'll continue first. These two mated and founded the Inca royal line of the site of Cuzco, the navel in Inca cosmology, the center of the world. And I was wondering here about comparisons with Dagda and Bowen. Dagda being the sort of sun deity of the Tuatha Dé Danann, Bowen being the moon deity in a way, the white cow. And it's interesting because the Dagda was said to have ruled in some branches of mythology at Uisneach, which has been described as Umbilicus Hiberniae, the navel of Ireland, which is fascinating. Because the moon goddess was threefold, the destroyer as well as the creator. She was the devourer of the dead as well as the giver of life. And I just want to hear about the Cailleach, who, when embraced, turned into the beautiful young woman who said, who bestowed blessings. And the Cailleach threw her drape, or her veil of winter, over the land. That there's this sort of two-sidedness to the Cailleach. I just wondered whether maybe, just maybe, there's a story of the moon there, that when the Cailleach is jumping from hill to hill at Lough Crew, she's losing a bit of herself, as it were, as she goes, and then she dies when she gets to the easternmost hill. And I'm thinking about the vanishing of the moon night after night, as the moon wanes and wanes and wanes down to a slender crescent, that it's dropping into the hills, or maybe rising out of the hills. Oh, there's a red sky out there, there's red clouds. Oh man, always the way. It's been raining all day long, and just now there's this glorious red sky. The underbelly of the clouds is lit up with this mottled golden, orangey, reddish colours. And I'm sitting here and I'm not out with my camera. So I'm missing it. And I know I'm going to miss it, because I would have to, even if I left now and tried to get to Newgrange in 10 minutes time, that sky will be gone. So the idea that I had, and this is tied in with the idea of the moon at Bealtaine in the first chapter of Island of the Setting Sun, where I talked about the story about the cow and calf being brought down the coast by Balor's servant, that that this might have been the moon and Venus, the cow and the calf. The calf, Venus, being described in Irish as Cailleachín no Mochorga, which means the early rising little hag. So if you think that my ideas are a bit far out, just go a little bit deeper into the sources. In Mexico, her destroyer aspect was Mictecacuatl, I'm sorry about my pronunciation, who roamed the skies at night, seeking victims to devour. She was called Lady of the Place of the Dead in appearance In appearance like Kali the Destroyer, she was not only the moon, but also the All-Mother, from whose genital hole in the earth humanity crawled in the beginning, and to which humanity would return. And that ties again in with the chapter of Island of the Setting Sun that is called Womb of the Moon. Newgrange, Womb of the Moon. Brú na Bóinne, the Womb of the Moon. The Vedas say all, or the Vedas is it, say all souls return to the moon after death to be devoured by maternal spirits. Orphic and Pythagorean sects viewed the moon as the home of the dead, a female gate, yoni, through which souls passed on the way to the paradise fields of the stars. And this ties in, I think, a little bit with the Síle na gig, which is found on many ecclesiastical, Anglo-Norman era ecclesiastical remains and some castles in Ireland. This carved female figure with her legs open and her vulva, her genitals quite dramatically and grotesquely displayed. And it has been suggested by a number of scholars, I believe, that part of this was part of some sort of ancient spirituality going back to the Middle Ages, but perhaps long before that, around the idea of re-entering the womb to be reborn. And that ties in with the sort of supposed spiritual cosmology of Newgrange and the passage tombs, and the work of Maria Gimbutas in describing them as passage wombs rather than passage tombs, that when you died you were going back into the womb to be reborn, perhaps somewhere else, to the paradise fields of the stars. Because I said in Island of the Setting Sun about the notion of some vision of the Irish otherworld lying among the stars, not being the underworld as such. That was just, you had to go down into the Shee, into the hollow hills, into the tombs, into the caves to be reborn. But then the sunlight and the starlight and the moonlight and the Venus light and the Sirius light at Newgrange and other, like the starlight at the likes of Fornox and many of the passage tombs, the Shee monuments, was drawing you out towards the sky or the stars or something along those lines, which is why I like that. The paradise fields of the stars. That's a particularly lovely idea. Greeks often located the Elysian fields, home of the blessed dead, in the moon. Castor of Rhodes said that the shoes of Roman senators were decorated with ivy lunules, crescents, to show that after death they would inhabit the moon. Roman religion taught that, quote, the souls of the just are purified in the moon, unquote. Wearing the crescent was visible worship of the goddess. That was why the prophet Isaiah denounced the women of Zion for wearing lunar amulets. That's Isaiah 3, chapter 3, verse 18. Quote, the crescent moon worn by Diana and used in the worship of other goddesses is said to be the ark or vessel of boat-like shape, symbol of fertility of the container or the container of the germ of all life, unquote. The same ark carried gods like Osiris into death, which may account for Jeremiah's hostility to the ark's symbolism. That's Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 16. Semites feared the devouring old moon as Hindus feared the devouring Kalika. Her dual nature may account for the correlation between Semitic Ima, mother, and Ema, tower, I-M-A, terror, I-M-A and E-M-A-H. Superstitious Christians sometimes refuse to sleep where moonlight might touch them. Wow. And we see how something gets turned into something sort of really turned on its head and turned into something quite negative. According to Roger Bacon, quote, many have died from not protecting themselves from the rays of the moon, unquote. There was always an association with death, and this is a quote, the idea of the journey to the moon after death is one which has been preserved in the more advanced cultures. It is not difficult to find themes of the moon as the land of the dead or the regenerating receptacle of souls. This is one reason why the moon presides over the formations of organisms and also over their decomposition. So I'm just taking a note here because I think that really ties into the idea that I think we have to rethink Newgrange, you know, and Brú na Bóinne as the womb where one goes to be reborn. that when the moonlight shines in, not the sun on winter solstice. The sun on winter solstice is the donating of the sun god with the earth, which is described in the Dintianicus. And I spoke about that in my talk at Uisneach, by the way. And I know I'm getting slightly carried away here, but you can see why I'm so excited about reading this sort of stuff. I love this comparative stuff. I haven't done enough of it over the years. I admit that. But where others have done it, it can be very valuable, because when you've seen and written and discussed all of these ideas, mostly with myself, but my good friend Richard Moore, of course, over the years. And then when you see someone else writing about them, you're inclined to think, well, okay, there's more to this. I thought I was a little bit mad and out there to be considering these notions, but maybe I'm just not so much, you know. And Iliade, by the way, the myth of the eternal return, big fan of that, and woke me up to the idea of this whole thing about the regeneration of the cosmos and the birth of the cosmos and the growth and the coming to maturity of the earth, and then the death, of course, the apocalypse, or those ending cycles, all related to lunar time. The first crescent as it grows out to the half moon, and then the full moon. Everything's bright, and you know that the light that it provides, but then it starts to wane again, and eventually it disappears for 3 days. The moon goddess is reborn every month. That's why Bowen remade, and that whole thing in Return to Segish was, for me anyway, so important, because it allowed me, that book, to explore themes that I couldn't explore in a scholarly way. I needed to explore them poetically and mythologically and mystically. It needed to be more supernatural. It needed to be a little bit lunar, if you like, you know. Loz Plotter asks if anyone lives close to Newgrange. Loz, Newgrange is 4 miles in that direction. 4.1 miles from where I am sitting as the crow flies. So yeah, I live close to Newgrange. Michael Trott is saying good morning from New Zealand. Good morning to you, Michael. I hope I haven't missed too many. I've been very deeply engaged in this work. Yeah, Walker is very respected, but remember, archaeology has been run by men for so long. Any woman mentioning and going against men's ideas was chastised and ridiculed. Yeah, exactly. And I kind of inclined to agree with that. There are some men in archaeology and antiquarianism who've commented quite a lot on Irish monuments who got it quite wrong. So I'm very, very glad to welcome the female voice into the whole debate. Because the moon was the receptacle of souls between reincarnations, it sheltered both the dead, and the unborn, who were one and the same. Believers in prophetic dreams said, if a man dreamed of his own image in the moon, he would become the father of a son. If a woman dreamed of her own image in the moon, she would give birth to a daughter. Most important for its association with birth, the moon was supposed to be the receptacle of menstrual blood, by which each mother formed the life of her child. Now, I don't think it's mentioned here, but I do think it's interesting that the moon occasionally during an eclipse turns blood red, which is fascinating. This sacer, is that how it's pronounced? S-A-C-E-R, taboo moon fluid, kept even the gods alive. The moon was, quote, the cup of the fluid of life immortal, quickening the vegetable realm, and whatsoever grows in the sublunar sphere, quickening also the immortals on high, unquote. Many myths of the moon journey bore witness to the ancient belief in lunar heavens. Gypsies opposed the Christian savior with their own Romany savior, who carried souls to the moon, like Hermes' psychopomp. Strangest of all myths of the moon journey was one involving Jesus himself. The Digby mystery play of the 16th century quoted, quote, Jesus' hymn to the moon, his mother, the vessel, in whom he rested before he ascended to the sun, unquote. Parents in France and Portugal confused Jesus' mother with the moon goddess, whom they called Our Lady and Mother of God. Scottish women curtsied to the moon when they saw her, saying, it's a fine moon, God bless her. In the Loire district, children's rhymes spoke of Madame Moon, giver of babies. A medieval German sect of Cathari worshipped the moon as Hiva or Eve, mother of all living, an older incarnation of the Virgin Mary. Even the Orthodox Church held that as Jesus was the second Adam, so Mary was the second Eve, and Mary was associated with both the moon and the sea. As the moon governs the sea's tides, so she was supposed to govern the tides of life and death. Shore dwellers, Shore, had an ineradicable conviction that a baby can be born only on an incoming tide, and a dying person cannot expire until the tide goes out. As a corollary, it was often said that birth at a full tide or full moon betokens a lucky life. The soul, and this imagery of Bowen sort of being scourged by the sun, as it were, and dying as the tide comes in and out on the coasts is a very important theme, again, in Return to Zegish. Did I share that link? I'm not sure that I did. In case you've never heard of it, or in case you're not aware of it, that's a book that I wrote, which is probably my single most mystical, poetic, spiritual work. Highly recommended if you're interested in an alternative exploration of the themes of mythology and the ancient monuments of the Boyne and Ireland in a wider sense. Paul Campbell has joined us from the May meeting of the Galway Astronomy Club. Brilliant. Lots of chatter there, I'm sure, about Friday's wonderful display of Aurora borealis. But the soul may ride the tide in lunar form, according to Caesarius of Heisterbach. Quote, the soul is a spiritual substance of spherical nature, like the globe of the moon, unquote. Scottish girls refused to schedule a wedding day for any time other than the full moon, the most fortunate time for women. Scandinavian women particularly prized amulets made of silver, the moon metal. The moon was the special deity of women even during the Renaissance, when it was said if a woman wanted anything, she should not ask God, but should pray instead to the moon. Witches invoked their goddess by, quote, drawing down the moon, unquote, a rite dating back to moon-worshipping Thessaly, centuries before the Christian era. Thessalian priestesses also prefigured witchcraft by laying curses with moon dew, said to be the first menstrual blood of girls gathered during a lunar eclipse. Medieval folk believed such a curse incurable. St. Augustine, author of The City of God Against the Pagans, and other fathers of the church believed what Virgil said about moon priestesses, that they could draw down the moon, stop rivers in their courses, turn back the wheel of the stars. Sorry, my phone is, I forgot to put it on silent, and it's a huge amount of notifications coming in all at once. That they could draw down the moon, stop rivers in their courses, turn back the wheel of the stars, or bring trees marching downhill. That sounds like an episode from Macbeth, doesn't it? St. Augustine berated women for dancing, quote, impudently and filthily all day long upon the days of the new moon, unquote. Wow. I mean, wow, he was what, 4th century AD, wasn't he? And we had Catholic priests in Ireland writing in the newspapers in the 20th century, criticizing women for apparently licentious behavior, dancing and flirtatious sort of moves, Few religious symbols occurred in so many diverse contexts as symbols of the moon. In the runic menological calendar, the moon sickle stood for the festival of harvest home, which the Scots called Kirn, K-I-R-N, from Corian, moon virgin, Kore, K-O-R-E, which Christians renamed the Feast of Our Lady of Mercy. In Gaul, the crescent moon stood for the Druidic Diana. Crescere, C-R-E-S-C-E-R-E, meant to grow, a form of Latin creare, C-R-E-A-R-E, to produce, to create. Modern France still makes them and calls them croissants, crescents, colloquially known as moon teeth. Wow. The moon ruled, I need to see, croissant equals moon teeth. Wow. The moon ruled the sexuality of women and sometimes made them scornful of the male-dominated society's notions of hierarchy. An astrological book of 1688 warned, quote, the double conjunction of Venus and the moon produces extreme lubricity, brings venereal disease, and causes women of quality to become enamored of man-servants, unquote. Despite all the church's condemnations, rural folk continued to trust the Moon Mother in all their most important activities. A popular almanac said, quote, kill fat swine for bacon about the full moon, shear sheep at the moon's increase, fell hand timber from the full to the change, horses and mares must be put together in the increase of the moon, for foals got in the wane are not accounted strong, unquote. Sorry, not the end of quote, just an ellipsis. Fruit should be gathered and cattle gelded in the wane of the moon, unquote. Most of all, the moon always governed magic. Melton said in 1620 that no sorcerer ever drew a circle of protection without observing the time of the moon. Now, at 25 minutes to 10, I've only just finished reading the bit about the moon, and I wanted to talk about the menstrual calendar, and I suspect there are going to be several more episodes based on this wonderful book, which I'm really enjoying. So next week, we're going to come back to it. So we'll do a few more episodes on this, and I want to read more of it in the interim anyway to prepare myself for those things. I will hang on for a few moments to follow up on any comments or questions. I apologize for the fact that I haven't been quite as engaged with the chat as I could have / should have been, but I've just simply been enjoying that book too much, and I hope you likewise. Let me just quickly look to see if I've missed anything. See, it's a great book, says Lexi. Exactly. I'm with you. Yeah, it is. More Girl says, sorry, the comments are moving very quickly. More Girl says, and I can't, they won't stay on the screen. They keep disappearing. Stop doing that. Why is that happening? Not you, of course. Yonis in Western Americas are found in rocks associated with star viewing and some animal and plant cults. The story of the hero twins likewise involves the underworld, rebirth, and being devoured. Wow. That's right, says Mavanway. That's what I'm doing next new moon. Dancing barefoot under the stars. Brilliant. Johnny Wilson joined us from Dallas in Texas. Hello, Johnny. Very good afternoon to you. Is there a community I can join here? Well, all I can say is get yourself over to the Mythical Ireland community on Facebook as a first starting place. Sign up for the newsletter on the Mythical Ireland website. I'm just conscious of the fact that I'm after missing so much. Terence Meaden had great ideas in 1992 about women in Stonehenge. Terence Meaden, who passed 80-something the other day, I, along with a filmmaker friend, I don't know when that was. It was before the pandemic, possibly 2018, 2019. We filmed Terence Meaden in Cork on a number of occasions and have footage that would make a half-decent documentary about the work that Terence has done. Unfortunately, my friend sort of got a job and was kind of taken away from his whole filmmaking stuff. I have all the footage sitting there waiting to be edited, and I'd really like to get it done because Terence, or Terry to his friends, is a very interesting guy who's had lots of very interesting ideas. And I believe he has, as he says himself, he's kind of solved the whole thing about what the alignments of the stone circles of Southern Ireland. mainly Cork and Kerry. Yeah, I'd really like to get round to doing that sometime soon. Um, I love your comments about mythology and more lunar thoughts. Yeah. What was the dream story about Newgrange? Ashlinga Angus, so the dream vision of Angus Og, which I kind of related to Cygnus. Let me just see if I can find that. Yeah, I have a version of that on my website, Nora. I'm just going to share that as a comment on both Facebook and YouTube. I think you're watching on Facebook. A film on Terry would be fabulous. He's brilliant. Yeah, as I said, we did some interview stuff. We did some stuff out at Drombeg and a couple of other sites, and I'd really love to put it all together. I mean, it would make probably something between a half an hour and an hour long documentary. I'd love to make it. Sharon O'Farrell is in this. Hello, Sharon. Dropping in late tonight. First time I've been on quite a while. Evening, Auntie and the two. Sharon, I believe that you'll enjoy greatly the entire episode, so make sure to watch it back from the start. Kieran Burns says hello. Hello, Kieran. We're just finishing up now at this stage, but please do remember that the episode will be available to rewatch as soon as we're finished. You can go back into YouTube and indeed Facebook and see the whole thing again. That ties in with Newgrange disappearing away. The dream story, the ground of Newgrange disappearing away. Nora, you might have to remind me what that's about, but sure, you can message me afterwards. Susan, thank you for that, because I have to be honest. Kia, yeah, in Peruvian language. Thank you for that, Susan, because I knew I would make a bags of it, as they say here. The moon, says Chris Haney Lang, is just as important as the sun for agricultural economies. Absolutely. The late Gillies MacBain, who wrote a lot about prehistoric astronomy, and I believe he was a savant, only died in recent months. He one of the things he did was he was a cattle breeder, and he said that the lunar calendar was still used by some cattle breeders. Yeah, I remember reading Island of the Setting Sun for the first time. It blew my mind and opened up such an appreciation and love for the stones of our land. Would love to be reading it again for the first time, says Nora. Brilliant. Well, just to remind everyone else that you can get signed copies of that book on my website. I still have copies. It's still in print, thankfully. Reissued, first published 2006. Revised and expanded in 2008 and reprinted again a couple of times, but republished with a new foreword in 2020. Okay, I think I'm caught up. And look, if I'm not, come back next week for the next episode. And if there's something really pressing, send me an email or a message. I'm easy to contact. You'll find my contact details on the Mythical Ireland website. That's mythicalireland.com. As always, please do consider becoming a patron if you're not already, and support the work. I am committed to this now as a sole trader and a full-timer, self-employed, and trying to make a living from it. If you can help, that's brilliant. I am hoping to do a lot more work. The Fornox book, there is good news. For those of you who have pre-ordered the Fornox monograph, I finally got word from the National Museum that the photographs are taken. That's of the finds, the one section of the book that has yet to be finished. And they'll be sending them to me in the next fortnight, at which point I will be able to get the book finished and get it to print. Really looking forward to that. It's the first book ever published solely about Fornox. The last publication that was solely about Fornox was the excavation report published by PJ Hartnett all the way back in 67 years ago. So a very good evening to you all. And as I say, please do come back next week and watch our follow-up episode, when we will be dipping back into what I just immediately feel, or I felt when I got it and I just dipped into it, was a wonderful publication. And I've wondered, as I say, where it has been all these years. Have a great week. Wherever you are, stay safe. Hopefully we get more magnificent displays of Aurora not getting one here tonight because it's cloudy. Yeah. And don't forget that you can get limited edition prints of those Aurora photos, limited to 100. And so each print comes with a number on the back, 1/100, 1 of 100, or 2 of 100, or 3 of 100. So get them before they're gone, and take avail of the 3 for 2 free postage offer as well. Thanks, folks. All that remains for me to say at this point in time, apart from definitely come back next week, I'm delighted to have met so many of you at Uisneach on Saturday. Do come back next week, but in the meantime, Ichawa Colosov, Slán go fóil, agus Tóg go bogé. Sound sleep, good night, bye for now, and most importantly, take it easy. You can pre-order on the website. The Fornox book monograph is available for pre-order. And finally, at the very last seconds of the live stream, Coda finally makes himself heard. Good night, everyone. See you all next week. Slán go fóil agus